Indie games continue to innovate and pay tribute to the classics, with upcoming games across shooters, tower defense, horror, action-adventure, and more. So let's begin with Eternal Legend, a game which might perhaps suffer from having such a generic title, but it's a gorgeous pixel art, turn-based tactical RPG that looks very Fire Emblem, of ancient gods and warring noble families tearing a world apart. The pixel art and animations look sick, with standard tactical RPG stuff like dozens of classes, bonds between characters, abilities and equipment, but where you're fighting massive monsters, which is their unique selling point. I like the pixel art of this developer, who previously worked on Dwarf and has a significant YouTube channel worth a follow as well, with his next game, The Last Phoenix, currently being on Kickstarter. This is a 2D platformer RPG that follows Felix the Goblin, who acquires a demonic reincarnation power, having to use it to save his kind from total extermination, swing weapons, use abilities, and explore underground mines and forested areas while choosing gear and charms to augment your abilities. Death in this game allows you to upgrade skills and be reborn stronger, but is not a roguelite, instead having a level-based world map with natural progression and does not erase progress, looking awesome and might be worth pledging your support. This video is brought to you by Tiny Lens 2, a cozy 3D Spot the Difference title, which is the sequel to a game from 2021, where you explore miniature dioramas bursting with detail and have to find differences between the two screens presented to you. I love the look of the dioramas that they have created, with levels ranging from cozy cabins to an ice cream playground, underwater, and even one where a giant mech is being built, where you're free to rotate the camera and admire the art as you play. There are now hidden jigsaw puzzle piece collectibles to discover in every level, with promise of a bigger surprise when you find them all, but at its core still remains true to its cozy roots, with no timer or penalty system, as well as a gentle hint system if you get stuck. This results in a relaxing, meditative game that rewards patience and attention to detail, set to a chill and relaxing soundtrack. It will also have 2-player co-op support, so you can play with a friend, as well as a new photo mode, which allows you to add stickers and other camera effects to make the landscape your own, also having 3 types of color blindness support so more people can play. If you prefer something slower paced and much more chill, you can buy it right now on Steam and Nintendo Switch. Septurian Might is a 2D platforming science fantasy action RPG where you explore the alien world of Septura and unlock power by stealing the intellect of your enemies. You run, slash and dodge in tight Souls-like combat, having to be precise with the timing as you exploit openings and get out of the way just in time to avoid the counter-attack. Grab abilities from defeated foes, stealing their intellect, memories and power, building a toolbox of over 100 unique abilities to use. Spend stolen intellect to upgrade 25 unique skills over 5 skill trees, upgrade your abilities, gadgets and more as you explore the world. While a bit darker in concept, there are doses of humor and absurdity in the writing, with branching paths due to your actions leading to multiple endings as well. The developer is also quite active on YouTube and releases content like their soundtrack, so check out their channel and follow along with development. Diesel Knights caught my eye since this is basically Titanfall, framed as a 6v6 mech movement shooter but in a diesel punk world, so not exactly futuristic cityscapes but locations which look much more gritty. You are battling on foot and in towering mechs, dashing, wall running and leaping across the battlefield in the former, and entering the cockpit of a 65-ton war machine to unleash rockets, machine guns and devastating melee attacks in the latter, with both first and third person camera options. I'm usually concerned about indie games with a focus on multiplayer, but 6v6 seems reasonable enough for a PvP shooter, and has an encouraging list of commitments that the developer has made, including no microtransactions, no AI-generated assets or code, no crypto, NFTs or blockchain technology, no unpaid labor or volunteers, and no always online DRM, so it looks like his heart's in the right place. I believe their playtest is also ongoing, which you can get access to via their Steam page, so go check it out. It always warms my heart to see indie takes on established ideas, since the IP usually gets stuck inside a bigger company who finds it financially unviable to make something cool, so if you have been waiting for Titanfall 3, perhaps support this Kickstarter. EONA is a dark horror action-adventure game that follows a young girl of the same name, cursed through both her soul and her puppet, as she attempts to flee a nightmarish castle ruled by an evil fairy. After stealing the fabled puppeteer's cross in a desperate bid to save her dying mother, EONA finds herself trapped within a labyrinth of twisting corridors, towering halls, and secret chambers, each echoing with the whispers of the castle's tormented inhabitants. Her curse manifests as a grim gift in the ability to transfer her consciousness between her human body and her puppet, using the latter to crawl through vents, scale narrow ledges, and slip into spaces where her physical form cannot reach. However, while the puppet explores, her body remains defenseless and the castle's mistress roams relentlessly, so bad things will happen if she finds your lifeless body. The game balances stealth and puzzle solving with sequences of heart-pounding tension as you keep track of both bodies, with the eerie fairy tale setting being very well done. One of the sickest looking games that I have come across is MORTEM, so it's no wonder why its Kickstarter campaign is already fully funded with plenty of time to go, and it's a multiplayer first and third person melee slasher with both PvP and PvE support. Set in the brutal world of Contraram, you play as a vessel, a byproduct of the death of the old gods, forced to wage eternal conflict on a ravaged battlefield of two factions. This is team-based, with a 5v5 competitive mode, so it might have some similarities to For Honor, but much more Souls-like in terms of look and inspiration. Use equipment like swords, axes, shields, and even pistols, then strike, dodge, and parry, mastering momentum, feints, and brutal finishes. If you prefer, there is a co-op mode where you delve into dungeons and cut your way through enemies using gained weapons and loot from dungeons to make your vessel even stronger. It looks absolutely brutal with intense visceral combat, so I hope that the single player experience will be good, even if the focus seems to be on multiplayer. Stellar Trader is a single-player space economy simulator set in a distant future where humanity has long since colonized the stars. You begin at the helm of a humble freighter, hauling basic cargo between star systems, but your ambitions quickly expand as you upgrade your ship with new modules, hire crew, and outfit advanced systems to transform it into a massive interstellar trade vessel. The core loop revolves around navigating fluctuating planetary economies, buying low and selling high, and seizing opportunities in both legitimate and black market settings. Whether you choose to exploit shortages for profit or stabilize regions through careful logistics, every trade affects the flow of goods across the galaxy. As your wealth grows, you can construct orbital stations above unclaimed worlds, establish trade hubs, and gradually shape your corner of space into a thriving economic empire. Danger remains ever-present, from marauding pirates to cosmic anomalies that can cripple your fleet, making upgrades and tactical preparation essential. Beyond commerce, the game layers in narrative depth with personal stories, faction diplomacy, and mysterious ruins waiting to be explored. It's an expansive sandbox of trading, strategy, and discovery, offering the fantasy of rising from a small-time space trucker to a galactic power broker in a living, reactive universe. A fun-looking factory builder is Chipmatic, which puts you in control of a mining robot on mission to reach Earth's core while building a massive factory. You dig deep, extract ores, fuel your power cells, smelt metal, and automate production chains so that you can keep exploring deeper and discovering new resources. Between subterranean runs, you research tech upgrades for your drill, jetpack, batteries, and more, turning yourself into a futuristic machine looking to mix SteamWorld Dig with Factorial. And while the idea has been explored before, this looks like a pretty well-made one of these. A mind-boggling first-person puzzle game is Stretchmancer, the latest puzzle game that plays with perspective, where your main power is literally stretching the world around you. You grab surfaces, pull and deform walls, platforms, and props to create new paths and solve wonky spatial riddles in order to defeat the Claustro Empire and to save the galaxy. There will be new hazards and obstacles thrown your way, as is puzzle game design, from bounce-fueled goo to exploding headbands and reticulated roller bombs, each making you think. First-person puzzle games like Superliminal and now this always fascinate me, since I do wonder how this stretch mechanic in particular works behind the scenes, with the vibrant, almost Saturday morning cartoon-inspired sci-fi world looking like a delight as well. The developer of Arcane Eats reached out, so I wanted to help them along, given that they released the roguelite Pego-like Round Guard back in 2020, which is fun, where you step into a magical kitchen in this roguelite deck builder, cooking up a storm to serve the hungry hordes. Grab ingredient cards and play them on enchanted cooktops using magical tools to modify them, then serve up the meals, getting paid in the process. You have to manage customer demands with your energy, cook times, and kitchen crew, making you prioritize and puzzle your way out of every level. There will be hundreds of cards along with different stuff to hire, upgrades, and unexpected phone calls with cheeky references to celebrity chefs like Guy Fieri and Gordon Ramsay, so if you're curious, they just released a demo so you can try it right now. Paper Castle, Tower Defense and Firefighting places you in a minimalist strategy sandbox crafted from folded paper where your job is to build, paint and defend a delicate paper realm from flames and invaders. Gather water pearls to build and paint your kingdom while also deploying units at strategic choke points and switch between extinguishing fires and combating enemy waves, turning the tide with tactical choices. You can paint life into the world, causing trees to grow or lakes to form, which in turn can be used to combat the fire. As you progress, you unlock new chapters, each inspired by different cultural heritages, exploring a little bit about the history of paper, but mechanically it is about progression to new missions with new perks and weapons that let your units punch harder or put out fires faster, even having leaderboards to climb to compare high scores. I absolutely love the papercraft art style and did enjoy following along those origami tutorial books as a kid, so this game has a special place and looks cool. A wacky looking title is Everything is Crab, the animal evolution roguelite, having you play as an evolving creature in a living ecosystem where survival means evolving faster than your predators. Choose from over 100 evolutionary mutations, from scales and claws and more, to build your creature's unique form. Navigate dynamic biomes, scavenging food, fleeing predators, and face roaming bosses in epic showdowns. The strategy deepens as you combine mutations into viable builds like Predator, Nomad, or Trickster, but of course, as science and the memes tell me, eventually everything evolves into a crab, but take your own path on the way there. There will be various difficulty levels, a genetics system for combining starting characters to challenge scenarios like Ice Age or Always Night, which should provide variety, looking like the creature stage of Spore but as a pixel art roguelite and looks quite fun. Monolith Rogue TD flips the script by placing you in the role of the unstoppable Monolith, descending from the sky to wreak havoc across different worlds, being a roguelite tower defense game where you are the villain. You summon towers, deploy minions, and dominate the level while adapting to ever-changing enemy paths which can stretch and split, forcing you to rethink tower placement on the fly. Each run, you build a custom deck of upgrades that enhances your towers and core, while terrain deformation, procedural worlds, and escalating enemies provide the challenge. You're not defending the innocent, you are the invading force, facing off against the resistance, but I always love it when games let you play as the bad guy, so this is of interest to me. There are a lot of zombie games, but Resilience has my attention since this is a colony management sim in a 17th century medieval setting, where you guide a fledgling settlement after a zombie outbreak. You plan layouts, build production chains, harvest resources, and fortify systems by day, then defend your people against the evolving zombie hordes by night. Each colonist carries unique traits, relationships, and ideologies, which shapes how they respond to your laws, leadership style, and social policies, resulting in loyalty, productivity increases, or rebellion. Research new technologies, expand territory, and secure your survival through diplomacy or warfare, with your colony's relationship to the wider world being of interest, and I do wonder what the long-term implications of that will be, making it an interesting zombie game that is quite different from the rest of the Horde. After something like 12 plus years, we have an official release date confirmation for Routine, a first-person sci-fi horror adventure game set on an abandoned lunar base where you explore the facility, crack open systems, and confront eerie threats, with a setting inspired by the retro-futuristic vision of the future from the 1980s. Wander through the different sectors of the base using your Cosmonaut Assistant Tool or CAT to interact with terminals, access data files, and probe the mystery of what happens while threats lurk in the dark. Each step forward reveals more of the base's secrets, and your only choice when encountering an enemy is to either run, hide, or reluctantly defend yourself, not being combat focused as far as I can tell, and is perhaps more akin to Soma. Find hidden logs and key environmental clues and piece together the story of the station's decline, looking ultra spooky, so let's hope it will make it to release. Alright, of course, due to the Warhammer IP, Warhammer Survivors is not exactly an indie game, but I was pretty tickled to see this pop up on my news feed since it is running on the Vampire Survivors engine, so good for Ponko since they probably got a bunch of money from this collaboration. The most interesting part that you might have noticed is that this just states Warhammer in the title, having both the 40k and Age of Sigmar universes in one game, where you're doing Vampire Survivor stuff of shooting at swarms of enemies while spamming projectiles of your own, running around to collect XP, and has that sweet chest opening animation as well. You choose from iconic champions, each wielding unique weapons and auto-attacking as you navigate pixel art arenas packed with Tyranids, Skaven, and other enemies. Collect drops and power-ups, unlock new gear, select permanent upgrades, and tailor your build for increasingly punishing runs, where Warhammer itself is kind of a fascinating IP to study, especially of where they started and how they got here, and to see it cross over with the Bullet Heaven roguelite looks like a dream collaboration. Lot is a chaotic action roguelite that fully embraces absurdity, throwing 1 to 8 players into a cursed fantasy world where the goal is simple: cause as much mayhem as possible. Battles erupt across procedurally generated landscapes filled with bizarre enemies and explosive encounters as you swap between swords, spells, and even guns to carve a path through the madness. Power-ups collected along the way can spiral out of control, stacking into outrageous synergies that turn you into a screen-clearing god of destruction. Co-op play amplifies the mayhem even further as you revive your fallen teammates, blasting the Tutor Horn to rally your crew and watch the battlefield dissolve into glorious meme-fueled pandemonium. Gold pickups are shared, but every player has their own wallet, letting everyone splurge on their preferred upgrades and builds. The whole experience leans hard into humor and excess, with over-the-top effects, cartoonish fantasy designs, and self-aware jokes that celebrates how ridiculous things can get. The Whisker Watch is a cute-looking co-op roguelite set inside a house where day and night bring different challenges. You romp around as a feline hero by night, clawing through haunted appliances and fighting chthonic horrors. Then by day, you'll nap, upgrade your cozy home, and customize fur patterns, collars, and accessories to carry into the next run, being the perfect little angel for your human, which might grant you additional perks. Cats are like the secret superheroes hiding in plain sight in this game, protecting their human from the evils behind the Eldritch Gate, having a little bit of Cult of the Lamb vibes and looks like fun with a friend. I just made a video on the best horror games, so I was quite pleased with the announcement of Darkwood 2, the follow-up to a great top-down action survival horror game, and looks equally chilling. This is a harsh survival horror sandbox set a few years after the events of the original and in the aftermath of the collapse of the Soviet Union, where the dying Aral Sea is now the site of a mysterious forest that swallows up everything in its path, and you have to find the heart of the forest, explore a vast open world without quest markers, scavenging for resources, crafting makeshift weapons, and seeking shelter before nightfall when unseen horrors roam and barricades and traps becomes your only defense. Instruments of survival include scavenge kits, improvised tools, and strange concoctions that grant temporary powers at the risk of side effects, while encounters with nomads, cultists, and deranged looters temper the experience, and you have to make tough choices on who to help or leave in the lurch. With its unforgiving systems, haunting landscapes, and refusal to hold your hand, the tone is bleak, immersive, and sharply unsettling, and interestingly, comes from a different developer than the original, not from Acid Wizard but Ice Pick Lodge, creators of the Pathologic games, and is being published by Hooded Horse, so I expect the quality to be very high. From the developer of Pumpkin Jack and the underrated Arcane Bot comes Far Far West, a chaotic co-op first-person shooter that fuses supernatural fantasy with the grit of the frontier. You form a posse of up to 4 adventurers, each with unique classes and loadouts, to take on contracts across haunted mines, cursed towns, and ghost-ridden railways. Combat mixes gunplay, spell slinging, and explosive teamwork as you dodge enemy fire, use cover, and unleash both lead and fireballs, working together with your team to take on waves of enemies and powerful bosses. Between missions, upgrade guns, spells, and abilities, choose your perks, customize your robot and steed, and then set off again, with the loot and currency feeding into a constant cycle of risk and reward that will keep you playing. I suppose as compared to the quote-unquote friend slop games these days, this is a more traditional co-op title with some great looking shooting and action, extending their playtest to November 10th, so try it while you can. Apomo District is an action-adventure game where the world changes every real-life day and monsters called Apomo roam freely. You step into the hunt for over 50 giant bosses, from spore-covered beasts to hammer-wielding moss balls, and the bizarre design of the creatures and combat encounters will be of interest. Wield unconventional weapons like bells, lanterns, and umbrellas, but also use slime boards, gliders, and jump pads to explore. Between hunts, you fish for buffs, collect bugs to trigger magical attacks, and mine sentient rocks. The daily changes to the game, of course, reminds me of Peak, and might be something to consider if you're a game developer, with the pixel art style of this game looking absolutely fantastic, so I'm looking forward to this. Lolan the Cursed Sand is a fantastic looking isometric action RPG set along the ancient Silk Road in the western regions of China, telling the tragic tale of an exiled royal guard seeking his beloved princess in a fallen kingdom. You assume the role of the skeletal warrior known as the Cursed Sand and freely switch between bone and sand forms to wield entirely different movesets as you slice through hordes in sword-heavy bone form or weave spells, teleportation, and summon sandstorms in sand form. Combat emphasizes realistic melee encounters from a dynamic perspective, layered with unique sand abilities that let you solve puzzles, deform structures, and exploit terrain during your journey through the handcrafted world. Confront formidable bosses and elite adversaries, blending dark fantasy, mythological motifs, and the harsh beauty of desert landscapes, where the dual form mechanic is most interesting to me, and of course, this looks sick as hell and has shot up the charts. Clown girls are kind of a thing now, in part due to the amazing digital circus, so I can see the appeal of Alpha Nomos, where you play as Cello, using the power of music and rhythm to overcome murderous puppets and a force called the Alpha Nomos. You slash through wave after wave of enemies, timing your attacks to the beat and wielding instrument weapons, going a little bit more into music theory, since the developers says not just to play on the major beats, but to use quick 8 notes and rests between your strikes, which could potentially be interesting. You can gain various power-ups which will change how you fight and sound, appearing to be a roguelite since they talk about experimenting with different power-ups in every run. It does look cool though, with the almost 3D platformer Kingdom Hearts-ish looking combat being different, so look forward to this in 2026. You might have seen Tingus Goose if you're subscribed to my newsletter, since I simply describe this as WTF, being an absurd, weird, and kind of freaky idle game where you plant supernatural goose seeds into human hosts, grow wobbling goose trees, and watch babies tumble for profit in the bizarre ecosystem you create over time. You tap water and feed your hosts, upgrade blossoms to ricochet babies for higher yields, slot specimens to build cascading synergies, and unlock surreal worlds as you play through chapters of strange visuals and odd humor. It's honestly grossing me out with the body horror, but if you're into weird indie game, this is top of the list. Something a lot less weird but no less absurd and hilarious is Rhythm Hotel, a fun-looking rhythm game in the vein of Rhythm Heaven or the like, with interesting characters in strange situations, having just a one-button control scheme, and draws upon various periods of history and characters, being for fans of the genre. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.